The KISS 100 is where some of the top Zwift racers come to race, but can I keep up with these riders and eventually compete for the win? Let's dive into the video. Hello Zwifters and welcome to my 1000 subscribers special. I reached 1000 subscribers around a month ago and I decided to do the KISS 100 based off of the race things that you guys voted on in order to decide what I would do for my 1000 subscriber special. Now the KISS 100 is something that I personally wanted to do for the longest time, and it's been a bucket list ride, and that's mainly because it's known to be literally one of the most competitive races on Zwift, other than say Zwift Racing League, and it's also extremely challenging because it's 100 kilometers of racing. Now the farthest I had ever raced was around 30 miles, so this is about double the length and much more competitive field than I'd ever raced before. The race was also at 6:15 a.m. and I only woken up 15 minutes earlier just to get in a quick breakfast and get all my stuff ready to get on the bike and hit record for this 2.5 hour race. Now in today's video I'm going to be providing commentary and analysis over this race in order to provide you guys with some more insight into how you can improve your racing, and I'm going to be highlighting some of the mistakes that I did make in this race. And note that because it is a long race, there are lots of mistakes and lots of places that you guys can learn in order to help you guys improve your Zwift racing and hopefully help you guys win that next Zwift race. Now the race does start off at a pretty average speed, and one of the great things that I'm noticing is that my heart rate is only around 160, which means that I have a lot of room to really push harder, and that's partly because I'm still waking up, but it also means that I'm racing on some pretty fresh legs in this race, and that should be a good sign that things are going to be pretty good later on in the race. And you can see here that a rider's already off the front, just showing you how hard this race is going to be because everyone is just attacking non-stop. And that's one of the nice things about having a really deep field in Category B, is that riders do attack a lot, and that's something that is really exciting about Category B racing because it's sort of in between A and C. And in Category C, you don't see much attacks, but in Category A, it's like non-stop attacking. B is a little bit of everything, which I really like. Now the group does start to settle down, and we're going to skip to this next attack over here, and yeah. Now, one of the really cool things about this race was that there were some riders who I've raced in the past, and it was overall just a pretty chatty and fun group to race with. And one of the riders, Alex Turpin, I've raced with him quite a few times before, so I'm pretty familiar with his riding style, which is typically hanging around the back and then putting in massive attacks once in a while that really do separate the group. And I was always aware watching at the front because I knew that the group was really big. And I also had Scott from KOM Hunt here, and go ahead and if you aren't already, subscribe to his channel because he does a lot of great live streaming and overall just a lot of quality content, and it's a lot of fun to tune into those live streams. So check him out on YouTube. I have a link below in the description. Now here is the first major attack, and that is the little climb in Tempest Fugit, and it's really small, so it's going to be a lot of riders attacking on the top here and then easing off on the descent. And I knew that I needed to be towards the front at all times for these attacks because I didn't want to be caught in the back and have to really just chase at the end, because that just tires your legs out a lot more. So I was going with a bit of a different strategy than usual in this race. Now in this next point of chaos, you do see that there is quite a bit of separation once I start to surge, and I really just knew that I needed to hop on to the front of this group if I wanted to really just make that split, because this was a really aggressive attack and I wasn't really expecting it. I was caught off guard towards the back of the group, and I just fly right through the top of the group, and I end up being at the front of the group for a little bit, and that's sort of the only time that I'm ever at the front of the group in this race with my nose in the wind. Now once I hit the front of this group, I did put in a small pull, knowing that I could just do that to really cause a little bit more separation, but I decided to ease off because I knew that I still had lots of racing left, and I really wanted to just ease off because I knew that the riders would be coming right back, and I still have lots of racing. I'm literally only 1/12 of the way there, so I knew that I needed to stay in the draft and really just relax for these next few miles because I knew that there was a climb coming up as we head into Tempest Fugit, or not Tempest Fugit, but Titan's Grove. But as you can see here that already riders are already attacking off the front, and there's a small breakaway going, and I'm just sort of ignoring them. I'm doing whatever it takes to stay in this group, which is around 120 to 140 watts for me, which is really not bad, and it's just a great opportunity for me to calm my heart rate down and really just get back into the zone and get ready for a much harder section of the course, which is coming up shortly. Now you can see here just some banter going on in the group, and it's all good fun, and you can see here some riders like me who are just hanging off the back right now, trying to do as little as possible, and once we hit this climb, it's all out. Riders are just really grinding up this climb, and I started to pick up the power around halfway through the climb, noticing that I need to be closer to the front of this group because riders are starting to attack, and there is still that rider off the front who is really just getting everyone to push that little bit harder, and that's probably the rider's strategy, to just really just hammer on the front of the group and just tire everyone out before this Titans Grove climb, because the rider probably knew that they could cause quite a bit of separation if they did get some riders dropped here. And dropped riders in a 100-kilometer race often leads to dropouts, so that just really thins out the group and just makes everything a little bit easier if you know you can be contending in the end. So that is definitely a good strategy if you are a really strong rider and feeling really good at the start of this race. You could definitely try that, because you can see here that there's two technical parts of the course, and those are two hilly parts, and that's where riders tend to get dropped. So if you can tire them out before the climb and still have energy for that climb, you can get a lot of riders who are weaker, not necessarily at the very top of category B, to just drop off and just not even be in contention for that win. Now, as we make our way through this rolling section of Titans Grove, I don't really get a good chance to just fully recover. I'm constantly putting in surges to stay close to the front of the group, because I knew that I didn't want to be in the back once the really steep downhill started before the climb, and that still ended up happening, but I overall was in a pretty comfortable position. Like, I was dangling off the back, but I also knew that I could surge at any moment and still be in contention for that top spot. But you can see here that as the climb starts, we start off really easy, and I was super surprised by how easy the group was going. I was expecting lots of mayhem right off the bat of the group, but nothing really happened, and I was really grateful for that. But you can see here, riders start to put in surges, and I start to put in a surge, and everything just cranks up. I'm now doing around 5 to 6 watts per kilo, just dangling off the back of this group, and I'm like, okay, I need to move up in this group, or everything is going to end up being a complete disaster. Now, at this point in the race is not even strung out at all, just showing you how deep the field is and how many riders are able to hold on to this blistering pace at around 5 to 6 watts per kilo. You can see here that riders are still pushing super hard. I'm moving up towards the front of the group, and I am now doing around 250 to 280 watts pretty much at all times just to stay near that front of the group, and I am dying. My heart rate's over 200. I'm having to put in sprints in order to keep up with this group. It's absolutely crazy, and I'm still in the top 30, which is where I want to be, but I really need to put in a surge here in order to just solidify my position in the group and make sure that I don't get dropped. And you can see here that tons of riders have been dropped at this point, and most of them are not even going to end up finishing because of being dropped 10 miles into a 60-mile race is absolutely discouraging. But you can see here that some riders do continue to battle on and end up fighting their way back to this lead group. Now, for the next 5 or so miles, a few riders do join back into the group, making the group quite a bit bigger, and that was sort of annoying, but it was okay with me because I knew that I was still going to have more riders to draft behind, which was ultimately good in the end. And for the next 4 or 5 miles, the race is honestly pretty chill, and things just calmed down so much that I was just like so grateful for that, because it gave me a chance to really recover and bring my heart rate down before those next attacks came, which I knew were probably going to come pretty soon. Now, first of all, if you are watching this video, I just want to thank you so much for helping me make this journey possible. I've been dreaming of this day for so long, and for it to finally come that I have over 1,000 subscribers, it's just so nice to see, and thank you all for the support that you've given me, and I will continue putting out these videos, and let me know if you have any video requests in the comment section below. As we hit this part of the course, I honestly did not think that this would be a point where riders would be attacking this hard, but it turns out that I was completely wrong, because you can see here, I'm pushing around 5 watts per kilo here, just trying to hold on to this group, and I'm thinking that, okay, I can just stay steady and sort of just move my way up this group, but I realized that riders are pushing a lot harder than I thought at the front, so I ended up needing to put in a pretty big surge in order to move up closer towards that top 20 where I wanted to be in a very stressful situation like this one. So I really want to be closer up towards the front. You can see that my heart rate is slowly creeping up, which is not ideal because it's already hit 200 earlier in the ride, which means that I'm slowly building up fatigue as we go on here. I'm now already warmed up and I'm ready for all these rides, but I'm just completely dead at this point. And this is where my legs honestly start to fall apart. 15 miles is sort of the sweet spot where I typically do my races. I haven't put in a ton of work on my endurance during this time because I've just been focusing on getting that FTP as high as possible. You can see here that I am just falling off the back here, and this group is super strung out. I am not where I want to be. Now, I do eventually catch back up to this lead group, and a few riders end up dropping out at this point in the race, and that's sort of a good thing for me because I want this group to sort of thin out. But for the next 10 miles or so, group is just really chill, which is really nice because it gave me a chance to really recover. That's one of the great things about this course, is that it's sort of like intervals. You have like certain intervals of pain and torture, but then there's also a solid amount of time where you're just chilling and able to just fully recover and just relax and regain your energy. You see that I did hit level 60, so that's another nice thing to see. Wasn't doing this for the XP, but it is always a nice bonus when you do hit that next level. You can see here that there are also no power-ups in this race, which is something that I typically hate, but I was fine with it because it really just made this a purely strength-based competition and strategy, and I felt like I had the advantage in that scenario because I have pretty good tactics, I feel, with all my Zwift racing experience under my belt. Now, heading into this section, if you have been enjoying this video, please smash that subscribe button. It really does help support the channel, and with that, let's continue on with the video. You can see here that once we hit this part, it is time for the Titans Grove KOM. Now, Titans Grove KOM is a really brutal one, and that's because riders start out generally pretty hard. So I'm already pushing 250 to 270 watts, and that is ending up being around 5 to 6 watts per kilo actually, and that's just a pace that I know I can't sustain for that long, and I end up putting in an even bigger surge here, putting in 350 watts, and that's over 7 watts per kilo for me, and these are just really sharp digs that are ultimately going to make me a lot more fatigued for that rest of the part. But I am sitting very nicely in the top 10, which is honestly something that I hadn't been doing much in this race, and I've just been trying to hold on. But in this point, I was feeling pretty aggressive, and I was feeling really confident with my abilities here in this section. But you can see here, riders do start to swarm and catch up as we reach the top of the climb, and I'm just thinking, when is this thing going to end? 1.5 minutes has never felt so long, and my PR up this climb is probably around 1 minute and 40 seconds during a Zwift Insider Tiny race, and this climb ends up being around that same pace, which is pretty incredible considering that last time I did this, I was pretty much doing an all-out sprint. Now, I'd like you to take a look at that mini map over there and just see how strung out this climb has made this group. And you can see that I'm slowly fading. I'm just putting in small digs to try to just do whatever it takes to hold on. And I can see the rocks in the distance. I'm just thinking that I just need to do everything it takes to hold on to this group, because once you lose the draft in a 100-kilometer race, the race is pretty much over. It's going to be really hard to catch up if you're really suffering and you aren't able to push more watts per kilo and a higher speed than a group, and that's just really the thing that was really motivating me to get over the top there in the same lead group that I started in. You can see here that I continue to push on, putting in around 4 watts per kilo over this climb, just so I can get in a better position in this group and really just lock into that draft, so I'm not just dangling and being worried about getting dropped at any moment. Now, once we finish this climb, we go through another one of those periods where some riders are hopping back on the group, some riders are pushing off the front, trying to get a split in the group, and I'm just trying to hold on and do whatever it takes to stay with this group. So you do see that I put in a few digs here and there, but honestly, it's nothing major, and I'm sorry that we're going so quickly here, but I'm just trying to get through this clip here because I want to show you a really crucial part of this race that I think really fatigued me and really just set me up for a poor finish in the race. And you can see here that we're at around 31 miles, and that's just about halfway through, and we are ticking in those miles, and time is going by honestly pretty quickly. Racing just makes everything a lot more fun and engaging, in my opinion. See here, I put in another small dig, but honestly, nothing major and nothing super important. You can see here that we're going through another banner, no power up as usual because it is the KISS 100. KISS races don't have any power ups. You can see here I'm getting that heart rate pretty low in the 150s, high 150s, and low 150s at some points in the race. And eventually right here, I end up just holding a steady power when some riders start to attack, and that ultimately leads to me getting kind of dropped. And I'm actually typing here. Come on, you guys have to be getting tired at some point. Like, I was just feeling that everyone was just so strong. Everyone had so much energy in this race that it was just really incredible to me. But I ended up getting dropped here. You can see that I'm putting in around 110 watts. That's like 2 to 3 watts per kilo for me. And honestly, that's just not enough in order to stick with this group. And they just slowly drift away. And I just don't even realize it until late. And I end up putting a surge of around 300 watts. And at first, I was pretty confident that, like, okay, nothing's really going to happen here. I'm going to catch up pretty quickly. But I ended up having to hold 300 watts for probably around 20 seconds, I'd say, until I actually caught the group. And that would just put a big dig into my energy, into my legs and everything. It just made me a lot more fatigued. And honestly, that's not something that I want to be doing in a race this long. After this, we do go through a chunk of around 5 miles where I'm just able to recover and get my energy back after losing all that energy and just using so much of my tank on that small surge to catch back up. And honestly, I felt a lot better after that point, and I was ready to continue on with this race. I had 27 miles to go, and I was determined to just stick with this group and just really just hold on for as long as possible because I knew that draft was going to be crucial to me finishing this race. As we enter Titan's Grove again, you can see here that I bring my power back up to around 250-ish watts, and I'm just doing enough so I can stay towards the front of this group because I know that riders are going to be pushing pretty hard. Last thing I want to do is get dropped before that Titan's Grove KOM, and the group is a lot more thinned out than last time we went up this. Last time we came up at around 70 riders, but now we're sitting strong at around 30 or 40, I believe. And you can see here as we go through these rollers, I have to put in a pretty big surge in order to get closer to that front of the group where I want to be throughout the duration of these rollers. Alright, so as we make our way through Titan's Grove, not much happens, and I end up being in pretty good positioning towards the back of the group, but still in a good place, and you can see here, as we start to get up this climb, we start the Titan's Grove KOM, and this is the longer side. This is around 2 or 3 miles of pain, I think, and it's not like the other one where you're like suffering for 2 minutes straight of just really, really hard effort, but this is more of a gradual effort. So you can see here that I'm putting in around 210, 220 watts. That's 4.7 watts per kilo-ish. And you can see here that we're staying in a pretty good place. Nobody's really attacking off the front or going crazy. We're moving at a pretty slow speed in my opinion. And it's just overall so far so good. And I'm just trying to hold on for as long as I can on this climb. You can see here that we do continue to push on at around 230 or so watts, and nobody's really going up the front or making any major moves, so that is a good thing because I know that things are going to ramp up later, and the sooner they ramp up, the more it's going to be really tough for me to hold on with these riders. I'm just trying to hold on for as long as possible because if I do get dropped, I'm pretty much screwed because there's still 24 miles left, and that's the last thing I want to do is ride those last 24 miles alone or get caught by some of the riders who've already been dropped. So you see here that I barely make it over the group at around 23rd place, but over the top of the climb, I still continue to push on because I know that if I don't continue to push, I'm going to get dropped, and I'm not going to have really good positioning coming into this descent, and I'm going to end up getting dropped. I do end up having pretty solid positioning coming into this descent, and I'm able to hold on, but there is a pretty big attack right here where I need to surge to around 330 watts just to hold on to these riders. All I'm doing is doing whatever it takes in order to stick with this group. I'm not trying to do anything more or anything less because that would lead to me getting dropped. That's the last thing I want to do here, and you can see that things really calmed down after that point, and not really anyone got dropped on that latest climb. We still have a solid group of 29 riders, and that's going to make for a really interesting finish because I know that some of the top riders are definitely going to try to separate this group and cause some extra separation so that they can really just thin out the group and get it so that there's only like 15 or so riders in that finishing sprint. You can see here we have around 19 miles left, and I'm just counting down the distance until we can get to that finish line because I just so desperately want to finish this race and just get to the end as quickly as possible. But you can see here that that's not going to be as easy as I thought it was. You can see here that riders are starting to put in a pretty big surge. This is the same spot that I didn't really expect anything in the last place. So this time I was a bit more aware, but riders were just attacking so hard that I thought that it was completely over. I was literally getting gapped with around 2 to 3 seconds, and I was able to catch on to some riders' wheels towards the end of the climb, and I ended up just drafting all the way until I got back onto the group, and I barely made it. I honestly thought that I was going to have to drop from there and just ride the next 17 miles completely solo, but I ended up holding on, and nobody else got dropped, surprisingly. And we still have a really strong group coming into this finishing stretch. Now we only have around 15 miles left, and the desert is honestly really calm because of how flat it is, but riders do try to attack here because it is a chance to really just attack the group while everyone's feeling really calm and secure. But we do end up catching that rider again, but there are a few riders off the front as usual in the KISS 100, but we end up just chasing them down slowly and just making sure that nobody really gets off the front too far ahead. And yeah, you can see here that I do end up chasing down this attack because I know that this is a really strong rider, Alex Turpin, and he can really just make this gap open up really quickly. And I want to get the jump on an attack for once rather than being the last one to jump on that train and really just be suffering all the way until the finish there. And you can see here 55 miles in now, and we are heading back into Titan's Grove. This is about to be another brutal run, and I know it's going to be the 2-minute climb, so it's going to be the much shorter one, and it's going to be really fast. And you can see here the group is down to 23 riders, so some riders have just been dropping here and there. Some riders have been dropping out because of time constraints and stuff like that. So we have overall a really small group, and there are still tons of riders chasing behind. So if I get dropped here, I will still have to fight to the finish line if I want to maintain my place of around 21st or so. You can see here we start this climb off kind of slow. I'm doing around 270 watts, and I'm moving through the group pretty quickly. Sort of the same scenario that happened last time, and I ended up having to ease off a bit so I don't hit the front of the group. So overall, I could have probably started a bit easier and ramped up slower rather than putting a pretty big burst in at the start. You can see here, as we make our way up this climb, nobody's really attacking yet. We're sort of just slowly ramping up. It's sort of the same thing that we saw last time. And my heart rate is creeping up at around 192, 195. And you can see here, I'm doing around 320 watts, and I'm now sort of just flowing with the group at around 5 to 6 watts per kilo. And this is just goes to show how quickly these riders are able to ride, even after riding 57 miles. You know, a lot of them do have experience in the KISS 100 race. This is my personal first time doing this, and first time racing for this long. So I wasn't expecting to necessarily hold on to the end, but some of these riders are very experienced and know when to use their energy much better than I do. You can see here that I'm really just dangling off the back here. I'm in 19th place, and my legs are feeling it so much, and I just know that this is probably where I'm going to drop, and my power starts to drop, and I'm just completely dead, and I'm just doing whatever it takes to sort of just minimize that gap. And now you can see here that one rider just flies right by me, and I know that I need to jump on this rider's wheel, or I am not going to end up finishing this ride in a place that I do want to finish it in. And I try to hop on that wheel, but I just can't stick with that rider, and that rider actually ends up catching back up to the lead group. So if I were able to jump on with that rider, I probably could have finished the race with the lead group, which would have been pretty epic, but unfortunately I did not have the legs to do that. But however, there is another rider right behind me who is sort of just drafting behind me, and I'm going to try to use this rider and really just work together with this rider so that both of us can benefit from this and not get caught in this finishing 5 miles of the race. Once we crest the top of this climb, we start to work together, and I end up collaborating with this rider, and we end up doing separate pulls. And you sort of just, we didn't really have a situation where we had like a scheduled time where one person would pull over another, but we were sort of just going with the flow, and whenever the pace would just slow down, we would put in another dig and just put in another surge so that we wouldn't lose too much time on that lead group. But one of the things that I found really surprising was that the gap opens up extremely quickly, and you can see that they already have multiple minutes on us, and we literally just got dropped maybe like 5 minutes prior to this moment in the race. And you can see that there are riders behind us who are chasing. We are keeping the gap to a minimum, but they are still closing that gap occasionally, and we really just want to minimize that gap and make sure that we don't get caught, because right now we're fighting for top 20, and there are riders ahead of us who are dropping, so we can actually catch those riders and end up securing a 19th and 20th position. In these final 2 miles, I was keeping an eye on both the rider in front of me and the rider who was just up the road at around 20 seconds away to see if we could possibly catch that rider. But unfortunately, we did not close the gap quick enough in order to catch that rider. So I was really just focused on this rider in front of me to make sure that he does not jump and I essentially lose the race. And I'm still going to fight for this win, and anything above 21st place is going to be a win for me in this situation. I started to ramp up my power to around 330 watts as the rider in front of me does surge quite a bit, but then I do lay off the power once he gets close to me, and I'm really just waiting until around 500 feet because I know that that's where I will be able to sprint and just really hold on until the end. Anything longer and my legs will completely fade. You see here, this is where I get my jump. I hit 480 watts and it only goes down from there. I'm hitting around 400 now, 310, and now I just see that the rider is completely dead behind me, so I am able to secure that victory and take 20th place in this race. Overall, this was an epic race, and it's definitely been a bucket list ride, and it was really great to check that off the bucket list. If you enjoyed this video, please smash that subscribe button, and with that, thank you all for watching, and thank you so much for 1,000 subscribers. See you all in the next one. Ride on.